She dared to ask, uncover the truth. What the rancher revealed left everyone in shock. Clara leaned against the weathered wood of her father's farmhouse, the scent of old hay and dust swirling around her. The late afternoon sun shone through the cracked attic window, illuminating motes of dust that danced like memories long forgotten. Her fingers trembled as she reached for a box hidden in the corner, its edges frayed with age. A flicker of curiosity ignited within her. This could be a connection to the past she'd avoided for far too long. If only layers of resentment didn't cling to the air like a storm about to break. With each creak of the old floorboards, Clara could feel the weight of her family's history press down on her shoulders, deeper than the sweat she earned from long days in the fields. The long-separated bond with her family had festered like an untreated wound. As she pried open the box, a wave of emotions collided within her: hope and dread. Inside lay a jumble of letters, old photographs, and clippings that spoke of injustice, of a past she didn't choose but was bound to. One letter, ink faded but words sharp, gripped her attention. Under a layer of dust, the script recounted her mother's suffering at the hands of a powerful neighbor, who had all but monopolized the town's resources. Clara's heart raced as a gnawing unease coiled tighter in her chest. Her family had always taught her to be loyal, to respect tradition, yet here lay proof of injustice. What had her silence cost them? What solitude hidden beneath those letters could spell out the truth of her family's shame? Gus, her neighbor and mentor, had spoken of integrity, a value she admired yet questioned. Honor will only take you so far if it permits wrongdoing, he often said, his voice drenched in the wisdom of years spent in the saddle. But how could she honor a legacy rooted in secrets? Her commitment to her family's land felt increasingly contradictory. Every decision nestled her deeper within a moral dilemma she had not anticipated. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the town hall meeting approached, Maria's words echoed in her ears. What is the true meaning of family honor? Could it be defined only by the acts of those who came before her, or could she redefine it for herself? The tension in her heart heightened with every passing day, her muscles coiling tight like a rattlesnake ready to strike. The weight of family loyalty and the fear of confrontation loomed larger, and every moment spent pondering felt like standing at the edge of an abyss. What if truth meant upheaval? Clara's thoughts spiraled relentlessly, invading her dreams, gnawing at her resolve. The image of her family's ranch transformed into battlegrounds, divided loyalties disintegrating around her. As Clara braced herself for the raw power of her revelation, doubt surged. She needed to decide. With the very reputation of her family hanging in the balance, would she choose to confront the shadows of her legacy, or shield herself beneath the heavy blanket of tradition? The echo of her voice, trembling yet resolute, loomed large in her mind. It was time to choose between silence and the courage for change, a decision that would leave everyone including her forever altered. Clara breathed deeply, grounding herself as she gathered the letters, the photographs, and the remnants of a life burdened by silence. Each piece she handled told a story of struggle and resilience, yet also echoed the price her family paid for retaining their loyalty to falsehoods. It was a history painted in shades of sorrow, and Clara could no longer ignore the weight pressing down on her conscience. She began to realize that her journey wasn't just about reclaiming her family's honor, it was about discovering her own. With the town hall meeting looming, she committed to preparing herself, not only by reading the letters but by seeking out the understanding that would illuminate her path. Clara made a plan to meet with Gus. His words about integrity resonated within her, and she needed guidance and honest perspective from someone well-versed in both the land and its complexities. The next day, Clara rode into town on what felt like a new horse. With the dust of the ranch settled around her, she felt the grip of determination pulling tighter. I need to gather my thoughts before I confront everyone, she thought. After tying the reins outside the diner, Clara entered, greeted by the familiar faces that shaped her childhood. Yet their smiles felt heavy now, a reminder of the ties that bound her to conventions she no longer cherished. Gus sat in a corner booth, his weathered fingers wrapped tightly around a steaming cup of coffee. The warmth between them was palpable. He looked up, gauging her mood, and she felt a spark of connection and anchor in her swirling sea of emotions. As she slid into the booth, Clara wasted no time. "Gus, I found some letters," she began, her voice barely a whisper, as if afraid the truth would escape and vanish into the air of unspoken words surrounding them. "They speak of our neighbor, the pain he caused my mother and my family." Gus remained silent, his gaze steady and unyielding, prompting Clara to continue. "The legacy of our families has been built on secrets," she pressed on, her words tumbling forth. "For too long, I've respected that silence, but I can't anymore. I believe we have a duty to stand against injustice, even if it means risking everything." Gus leaned back, eyes narrowing as he processed the weight of her confession. "You're brave for confronting this," he finally said, "but courage may come at a cost. You must understand that change doesn't come without consequences." The gravity of his statement deepened Clara's resolve. She was already facing her reckoning, but a flash of uncertainty tugged at her. What if confronting this meant losing her family's legacy? What if the truth caused more harm than good? Yet as she sat there, the energy shifting around her, clarity began to bloom. "Maybe that's the point, Gus," she said, her tone strong now. "Perhaps our family legacy needs to be rebuilt, on honesty rather than deception. If I don't speak up, what will my children inherit? A lie?" Finally, Gus nodded, a hint of respect shadowing his features. "You're moving forward, Clara. But be prepared for the battles that lie ahead. The town won't take kindly to someone rocking the boat." Clara chuckled softly, the weight of her emotions lightening for a moment. "Then I better grip that will tightly." The taste of determination was exhilarating, but she could feel the fear swirling below the surface. As the sun began to dip low, casting long shadows across the diner, Clara felt the urgency of her decision. The battle lines were drawn, she had a choice to make. Would she wield her words and expose the truth, or would she evade the confrontation, cowering under the weight of familial loyalty? That night, Clara lay in bed, her mind racing with the implications of her imminent confrontation. Tomorrow, the town hall meeting would not only be a gathering of community members, it would be the defining moment of her life. She could feel the heavy anticipation pulsing through her veins that it was time to unmask the truth. The moment of decision loomed closer with every heartbeat, and as she closed her eyes, Clara wondered. Would she emerge a daughter of the past or a woman of her own making? Clara realized it was now or never, and the town could forever change with the choice she would make. Clara awoke early, the morning sun creeping through the slats of her window, stirring a mix of excitement and dread within her. Each light beam felt like a whisper, urging her to confront the reality awaiting her at the town hall. She sat at her kitchen table, tracing memories across the surface with her fingers. The usual familiar contours now felt foreign, like a life she didn't fully inhabit. The aroma of coffee filled the air, sharp and grounding. As she poured herself a cup, she was reminded of Gus's words, each one echoing in her mind, "Courage may come at a cost." Steeling herself for what lay ahead, Clara pulled out the letters, spreading them across the table, the ghostly echoes of her family's past compelling her to combine their stories with her own truth. She scrutinized each phrase, noting the strength in the bravest words, searching for clarity. Would family loyalty still matter when weighed against a lie as heavy as this one? With the letter in hand that spoke of betrayal, she imagined the townsfolk's reaction. Some would support her, others would turn their backs in disdain. Clara knew the meeting would not only expose the truth about her family's history but also unveil the fragility of human connections that flourished on unsteady ground. Arriving at town hall felt like stepping into a coliseum. People filled the seats, their conversations buzzing around her like angry hornets. The air was dense with anticipation. Clara's heart raced as she navigated through the throng. She felt a dissonance between her old self, the one that had been content buried in shadows, and the woman she was becoming, fierce and unyielding in her pursuit of truth. she noticed familiar faces, neighbors chuckling, whispering secrets. Little did they know the dark history that their laughter masked. Clara shook her head slightly, a flicker of resolve igniting within her. This wasn't a moment for nostalgia. It was a reckoning. As the meeting began, Clara sat up straighter, feeling the weight of countless gazes on her, questioning, judging. What would happen if, in articulating her desires for honesty, she found herself alone in a room full of the very people who had raised her? Would the warmth of their smiles be replaced by scorn? The mayor called for public comments, and Clara's heart pounded in her chest. Time seemed to slow. This is it, she thought, bracing herself for the plunge. With every hesitant breath, she drew strength from the resolve she had cultivated through the letters, the memories of her mother's struggles swirling around her like a safety net. Everyone, she began, her voice carrying through the room like a shard of glass flying through the air, I stand here to acknowledge the truth we've long ignored. My family has held secrets that have stifled the very breath of this community. The time for silence is over. As she spoke, her words flowed from her with an urgency born out of years of suppression. Each one seemed to chip away at the barriers, the suffocating weight of loyalty began to lift as the truth swelled in her chest. A mixture of shock and anger played across her neighbors' faces, and Clara sensed the collective breath halting in disbelief. Midway through her declaration, an unexpected voice cut through the tension. A rival rancher she had dreaded encountering was rising from his seat. He faced her, his features hardened, eyes flashing with defiance. What do you hope to achieve, Clara? You're walking a dangerous line, digging up bones better left buried. His challenge hung in the air, sharp and electrifying. In that instant, Clara realized her confrontation was not merely a revelation of the past but also an unearthing of a confrontation she had never envisioned, one that would test her resolve more profoundly than she had anticipated. The stakes had escalated. Clara could feel her pulse quicken, a call to arms pulsing through her veins. How could she navigate not only the truth of her family but also the hostility simmering and waiting to erupt around her? She needed to act swiftly. This was no longer just about her legacy. It was about survival in a community rooted in past betrayals. Gathering her breath, she readied herself for the next words that could either seal her fate or propel her into a future of honesty. Would she stand her ground against the tempest she had invited? There was no turning back now. Clara could feel the weight of silence fall heavily upon the room, the air thickened by the rival rancher's accusations. The skepticism in his eyes mirrored the doubts that gnawed at her insides, but she fought against the urge to falter. After all, this moment was not solely hers, it concerned the hidden stories of many, some whispered through generations, others buried deep beneath layers of shame. The mayor looked momentarily stunned, but Clara sensed a flicker of intrigue sparking within him. He was a pragmatic man, a custodian of the town's pulse, and she hoped he would recognize the importance of the truth she had unearthed. Clara steeled her mind, channeling the energy of all those letters, the narratives of loss and hope that had shaped her. And what do you suggest we do, Tucker? She shot back, her voice holding steady, rising above the murmurs. Should we stand idly by while secrets eat away at our community? This land belongs to our ancestors and it deserves to be free of the shame we've inherited. You may think burying the past protects us, but I believe it shackles us. The rancher squirmed, and for a brief moment, doubt flickered across his face. Clara had touched on a nerve. Maybe, just maybe, he too felt the gravity of their shared history, an unacknowledged burden that threatened to unravel them all. You're reckless, Clara, he retorted, but she detected a shift in his defensiveness, a hint of fear that had taken root behind his bravado. You'll regret this. The direct confrontation was electrifying. Clara's resolve deepened, fueled by a growing understanding of the complexities surrounding loyalty and truth. Regret? She had already made peace with the possibility of regret. What would be far worse was a life in which she continued to watch her community cling to obscured truths, suffocating under the weight of inherited silence. Hands trembling, she grasped the letters tighter, their aged yellowing pages a testament to all that had been lost. They hadn't dictated the choices of the past, but they steered her toward an uncertain future. If you want to threaten me, then do so. But know this: our town will heal only when we face what we run from. It's time to confront our history openly, or we'll repeat it. The crowd was shifting. Clara could see bewilderment mingling with curiosity in their eyes. Conversations had halted, replaced with the humming tension that rippled through the room. Those who initially held contempt now seemed to grapple with the gravity of her words, questioning their own roles in the tangled history she sought to untangle. For the first time, the sense of discontent around her began to transform into something more potent and awakening. Clara felt it swell within her, flowing outwards as she embraced the possibility of vulnerability as a source of strength. What once felt like a chasm between her and her community was slowly appearing as a bridge. "Shouldn't we be angry?" she pressed, addressing the crowd as a collective, eyes darting across familiar faces. "Shouldn't we, the heirs to these buried truths, be sincere enough to demand answers? The anger that divides us can only be countered by transparency and understanding." Clarifying her stance felt liberating. Each word was a deliberate strike against the paralysis that had taken over her and her neighbors for years. Clara found not only her voice but a calling that pushed her forward. It wasn't just about the revelations of her family, it was about compelling her community to confront their turmoil together. Tucker seemed to notice the shift and braced himself, his posture rigid as he remained seated but far less defiant. Perhaps he was realizing that his intimidation tactics were no match for the resolve gathering strength in Clara's words. As she concluded, Clara looked to the mayor, a crucial ally forming, and saw a glimmer of acknowledgement in his eyes. Then suddenly, another figure arose, a woman from the back, her voice unexpectedly steady. "If secrets are our chains, Clara," she began, "then we owe it to ourselves to break them." In an instant, Clara felt the undeniable force of a tide turning. Were others willing to rise, too? What else could emerge from this moment? The promise of change throbbed in the air as Clara prepared for the potential fallout of this newfound whirlwind. Would they rally behind the transformation, or would old habits strike back with vigor? As the meeting continued, dread mingled with exhilaration. The stakes had shifted dramatically, and Clara would soon find out just how deeply rooted the resistance ran. Every heartbeat felt like a ticking clock, ready to explode into a future she would shape or be consumed by. What would happen next when the weight of the past clashed with the aspirations of the present? As the murmurs in the room grew, Clara felt an electric charge flicker through her. The woman's words had ignited something deeper within the crowd, something that could no longer be contained by the fear that had prevailed for so long. Clara inhaled sharply, sensing the momentum shift in her favor. This was the moment she had been waiting for, a chance to turn doubt into action, fear into courage. "Who else is with me?" she asked, her voice cutting through the ambient noise like a beacon. "Are we to be defined by the shadows of our ancestors, or will we seek out the truth that has laid buried for so long?" The silence that followed was thick, punctuated only by the shuffling of feet. Clara's heart raced, each beat echoing the weight of the history they shared. It was an invitation to vulnerability, a challenge she was determined to uphold. "Let us tear down the walls of silence," her voice rang out again, more fervent now. "We owe it not only to ourselves but to our children and the generations yet to come. If we do not confront our past, then what future can we hope for?" A young man in the front row stood up hesitantly, glancing around as if seeking validation. "I'm with you. My family, we've lost so much to this secrecy," he admitted, voice cracking slightly. A ripple of agreement followed him, seemingly freeing others to share their own cravings for honesty. Soon, others echoed their support, each voice a small act of defiance. As Clara listened to the stories pouring forth, she felt a powerful realization wash over her. These were not just her battles, they were echoed in every heart that had been constrained by silence. A sense of solidarity began forming, one where individual pain morphed into collective strength. But the longer Clara witnessed this unraveling, the more she felt the weight of expectation settle upon her. They looked to her as a leader, a beacon in dark waters. Would she be ready to navigate the complexities of this newfound path? Was she prepared to face the consequences? Tucker remained seated, but his expression evolved from defensiveness to wariness. As Clara concluded this wave of support, she caught him watching her, his jaw set tight. What's next? She thought, realizing the importance of strategy now. This gathering fervor had given them a foothold, but they needed a plan to match the voices raised for change. We need a meeting, Clara proposed forcefully, glancing at the mayor for approval. An assembly where we ensure everyone's voice is heard. We will gather the stories, the truths, and tackle them one by one. And what about Tucker? And his threats? Someone questioned, uncertainty creeping back into the room. Clara felt the whisper of doubt taint the excitement, and she hated the idea of it breaking the bond that was beginning to form. We'll face him together, she asserted, unwilling to concede any ground. Together, we're stronger than any single person who tries to maintain this facade. It's time to expose the truth. As the crowd murmured their agreement, Clara felt the heat of determination ignite within her. But nestled against that flame was a shroud of unsettling fear. What if the trust they had built so quickly unraveled under scrutiny? What if Tucker retaliated in ways she could not anticipate? With her heart racing, Clara realized she had taken the first step as a leader, but the leap would require unwavering faith in her newfound allies and in herself. The mayor nodded thoughtfully, taking it all in. Let's set a date, Clara, he finally said, a grounded authority in his tone. But be prepared. This will draw heavy resistance. Let it come, Clara challenged, her pulse quickening. She now understood that facing opposition wasn't a setback, it was a necessary part of the transformation she sought, yet doubt quietly gnawed at her, demanding attention. In that electrifying moment, she recognized a simple truth: the journey ahead would be rife with obstacles and turmoil. Would her courage be enough to guide them through? Could she navigate the very complexities of her own heart amidst the swirling narratives of the town? As she stood there amidst the murmuring crowd, with hope blossoming like a fragile flower in the cracks of their shared fears, Clara felt one last impactful thought surface: was she truly ready for the repercussions of unveiling what lay hidden? The answer unfolded slowly in her mind, an impending reckoning whispering through her very soul, signaling the magnitude of what lay just beyond the past. And somewhere in those uncharted waters, Clara sensed the urgency of an even deeper truth waiting to crack open. What if the consequences weren't just external but buried within her own family's history? As the meeting came to a close, she held tightly to that thought, wrestling with the understanding that the time to truly confront the past was now, and it held the potential to shatter everything she thought she knew. Clara stepped from the packed room, the adrenaline still surging in her veins. Each footfall felt deliberate, purposeful, as though she was breaking through the barriers that had long confined her. The weight of expectation from the crowd clung to her, heavy and palpable. She had initiated a spark, but now the full depth of her responsibility loomed like a shadow. It was one thing to rally people around the cause, and quite another to lead them through the fire she anticipated. Outside, the evening air was crisp, the sky darkening into deep indigo, punctuated with stars that seemed to shimmer in agreement with her resolve. Clara perched on the wooden railing outside the hall, her heart still racing as she stared into the distance. The looming horizon represented both the unknown and the promise of change. It was time to confront what lay within both her spirit and her heritage. As she pulled out her phone to jot down ideas, a surge of apprehension rolled over her. The question she had skirted loomed large: was she truly ready for the truth that could possibly shatter everything she thought she knew about her family? Those buried secrets felt like a ticking time bomb, just waiting for the signal. Was it a risk worth taking? Bang! The sound of a door slamming jolted Clara from her reverie. She turned to see Tucker emerging from the building, his demeanor fraught with an unsettling tension. He approached with a slow, purposeful gait, his eyes scrutinizing her every move. There was defiance in his stance, a palpable threat that hovered between them. "We need to talk," Tucker said, his voice low, controlled, masking an undercurrent of anger. Clara's instinct was to retreat, but she steadied herself, unwilling to cower beneath his scrutiny. "About what? The way you tried to undermine the meeting?" Clara replied, her voice edged with defiance. His mouth curved into a smirk as he leaned against the railing beside her. You think this is just going to change overnight? You don't know what you're dealing with. You think a gathering of voices can shake the foundations of this town? Clara felt a knot forming in her stomach. It was as if he were searching for weakness, watching for cracks in her confidence. Maybe it will, she countered, matching his intensity. What you're missing is that people are tired of living in the dark. You've had your way for too long. Ah, but you're still in the dark, Clara. The real secrets aren't in history, they're right in front of you, concealed beneath facades just like mine, he replied, his tone becoming more menacing. Stay naive, and you'll find yourself lost when the truth surfaces. As Clara stood there, studying Tucker, she felt the challenge forming within her. This was her moment to reclaim power in this dialogue. Why don't you enlighten me then? What do you know that I don't? He chuckled, an unsettling sound that reverberated between them. You'll find out soon enough. Just know that you're not the only one who can rally people. The truth is a double-edged sword, and it's time you learned how to wield it properly. At that moment, Clara understood that this was no casual conversation. This was a direct confrontation, a test of her strength. The tension between them pulsed in the air as she realized she had been drawn into a deeper conflict than she had anticipated. Tucker wasn't merely an obstacle, he embodied the very secrets she sought to uncover. Bring it on, she declared, the confidence flooding back as clarity began to form in her mind. Let us see how your sword fares against the truth. You think you know how to fight this battle? We'll see who comes out on top. Tucker's eyes glittered with amusement mixed with a foreboding sense of warning. Just don't say I didn't warn you, Clara. After he turned and walked away, Clara's resolve solidified. This was not just personal, it became a quest, an unmasking, a deliberate stripping away of layers she had never thought to question before. As she stared into the distance, an unsettling thought nagged at her. What if the truths about her own family intertwined with the very secrets Tucker guarded? That realization sparked a fire within her, pushing her to seek out the deeper knowledge, to explore the empty spaces where darkness had hung too long, and as she began to formulate a strategy for the impending battle, one thought rang clear in her mind: the time for half measures had passed. It was time to dive headfirst into the abyss, but what awaited her there? Would the revelation strengthen her connection to her past, or would they sever the bonds completely? Clara breathed deeply, preparing for what came next. The battle lines were drawn, and she knew the fight ahead would demand more than she had ever given before. The following day dawned, yet Clara found herself unable to embrace the morning. The air felt heavy with unresolved tensions, her phone buzzing incessantly with messages from allies and skeptics alike. She barely glanced at the screen. They all expected her to lead, to provide answers, yet she was drowning in her own uncertainty. Clara paced the narrow confines of her living room, her mind racing. There were things she needed to uncover about her family's past, about Tucker's insinuations, about the very ground she stood on. Each secret seemed to manipulate the pieces of her life like a master chess player, maneuvering her toward a checkmate she was only now beginning to comprehend. Taking a deep breath, Clara resolved to turn the day into an exploration, the truth-seeking expedition she had danced around for so long. She grabbed her jacket, slid her hands into the pockets, and met the chill of the air when she stepped outside. Determination ignited her steps as she made her way toward the local library, a treasure trove of information and history, a place to dig into the dusty archives of her family's lineage. As Clara entered the library, she felt the familiar scent of aged paper wrap around her, the ambience of whispers and page turns blending into a quiet symphony. She needed to locate her family records, hidden among the chronicles of time. The librarian eyed her curiously, but Clara was focused. "Excuse me," she said, approaching the desk. "I'm looking for records on the Henley family history. Anything from the last century would help." The librarian assessed her with cautious interest. "You'll find some information in the local history section, but be prepared, the Henleys have a complicated past." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Complicated how? You're not aware?" The librarian said, tilting her head. "The Henleys were important in town, but not all of it was noble. There are stories' dark corners. Clara's heart raced. Where do I start? The librarian handed her a small ledger and guided her to a small room filled with books and clippings. Clara settled into the worn chair, flipping through the dense pages of history, all the while feeling an unsettling energy pulsing through her. Each entry seemed threadbare, frayed with fragments of anguish glimmering through. Hours slipped away as she pieced together her family's narrative, tracing grand personalities and revealing tragedies, scandals that painted a picture of resilience wrapped in sorrow. A chill ran through her as she discovered mentions of a feud that had polarized families. Was Tucker's family part of that history? The evidence hinted they belonged to a line that once bore significant influence, a power unyielded, unchallenged. She found herself transfixed by an old photograph of a handshake between her grandfather and Tucker's grandfather. The faces stared back at her with knowing eyes, clashing forces veiled beneath smiles. The tension etched in their jaws seemed to echo the very conflict she was facing now, a power struggle that intertwined both families in ways she had never known. Clara paused, digesting the implications. If Tucker believed knowledge was power, she now held fragments of it in her hands. Her determination transformed into action as she mentally mapped her next steps. Reaching this point stirred something deep within her, an understanding of who she was beyond the confines of expectation and fear. Her resolve solidified as she left the library, clutching the compilation of her family's secrets. She wouldn't shy away from the confrontation ahead, but she now realized that confronting her heritage was just as vital as facing Tucker. Later, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. The reflection staring back held purpose. She was ready to wield the truth as her weapon. But how would it reshape the narrative Tucker cultivated? As Clara walked back home, a thought loomed large. Would the truths she unearthed be the keys to her empowerment, or mere bullets in an escalated battle? It was unsettling, yet the thrill of discovery fueled her mind. Once inside, she opened her notes and began sketching potential dialogues with Tucker, preparing for their inevitable next encounter. What she had discovered demanded confrontation, and the time had come to wield her newfound knowledge. But as her pen danced across the page, one question persisted: what if some truths were best left untouched? Would the battle she had engaged in cost her more than she was willing to pay? As she pondered, the phone buzzed again, a message that would change everything. "I want to meet," it read, signed simply as Tucker. The call to the next battle had begun. Clara hovered over her draft, her heart thundering in her chest as she processed Tucker's message. She could feel his presence looming even in digital form, a shadow of the man who had rocked her world with vague hints and accusations just days before. The screen flickered with his demand, and she recognized an opportunity not merely to reply but to confront. Time stood still. She clenched her fists, her thoughts racing ahead. She knew she had to approach this meeting strategically. Tucker was a formidable opponent, but for the first time, Clara felt she had leverage. The past her family had buried was no longer just dusty records, it had become her spiraling catalyst for growth. She envisioned her confrontation, the words she would speak, and the truths she would unravel. After some internal debate, Clara finally texted back, "I'll meet you." When and where? Her pulse quickened as she hit send. It felt simultaneously liberating and terrifying, the thrill of taking charge of her narrative, of confronting the power play she had inherited. Later that evening, she donned a simple, elegant blouse, a statement of confidence and control, and headed out the door. The warmth of the summer twilight comforted her nerves, yet uncertainty danced at the edge of her thoughts, whispering alongside the buzzing insects emerging in the dusk. Arriving at the cafe where they had agreed to meet, Clara took a deep breath. She stepped inside and grabbed a corner table, positioning herself to face the entrance. The ambience crackled with the hum of conversation, grounding her thoughts. She was here to stake her claim, to confront the illusions and masks they both wore. Minutes passed, yet each one felt like an eternity. Clara's mind raced through her newly acquired knowledge, piecing together strategic questions designed to pierce through Tucker's facade. Did he know what she had uncovered? Could she invoke the feuds and conflicts that spanned generations? Finally, he entered the cafe. Dressed in a dark denim jacket and the rugged confidence she had grown accustomed to, Tucker scanned the room until he found her. As he approached, she caught a glimpse of the complexities behind his eyes, a tempest of emotions waiting to be unleashed. "Clara," he said, his tone edged with unfamiliar warmth. "Tucker," she replied, her voice steady, asserting authority over the trembling uncertainty that fluttered within. He sat down, and Clara wasted no time. "You mentioned family legacies before. What hidden truths do you really know about the Henley history?" Tucker's brow furrowed, surprise flashing across his face. "You've been digging. I didn't think you had it in you." She leaned in, her resolve hardening. "Don't underestimate me. This isn't just about family anymore, it's about power. What are you planning to do with what you know?" The question hung between them like an electric charge. Tucker narrowed his gaze, considering her with an intensity that felt both accusing and intrigued. "I could ask you the same thing." Clara recognized the role they were both playing, the strategic dance of power dynamics layered with historical baggage. This realization intensified her mission. She wasn't merely filling in the gaps of her family's past, nor was she a pawn in a game that no longer interested her. "The past has a way of dictating the present," he finally said, breaking the tension. "We're both standing on the same battlefield. Then let us lay our cards on the table," Clara suggested, a challenge hanging in her tone. Tucker leaned back, folding his arms with an inscrutable expression. "What do you want to reveal?" In that moment, Clara realized what she truly sought: clarity for herself, for her family, for whatever lay ahead. Yet a question loomed large, darker than the coffee brewing behind them: was she ready to confront the shadows that emerged with each truth they unveiled? The atmosphere thickened, and she wondered whether their past would define their future or if their choices could write a new narrative entirely. Suddenly, Tucker's phone buzzed, and he glanced down. His expression tightened, foreboding casting a shadow over their exchange. "I have to take this," he said, rising abruptly. As he stepped away to take the call, Clara's mind spun. The confrontation felt like just the beginning, a small crack in the facade hiding deeper secrets. What had she set in motion? And just like that, the game shifted once more. What lay ahead promised to be the most dangerous chapter of all. Clara's heart raced as Tucker stepped away, his sudden departure pulling her back to the present, the whirlwind of emotions swirling around her head. The cafe, with its rustic charm and ambient chatter, seemed to fade into backdrop noise, becoming an indifferent spectator to her internal chaoses. The urgency of the moment ignited a newfound spark of determination within her. She couldn't afford to sit idle. Clara pulled out her notebook, the pages scribbled with notes and questions that felt more imperative now than ever. She glanced around, considering the people in the cafe. Some were deeply engrossed in conversations, while others sipped coffee in pensive isolation. Each person was living their own story, yet here she was, at the precipice of her own narrative explosion. Her fingers danced over the pages, the familiar motion providing solace. The task at hand had shifted. Her initial goal of simply acquiring information was morphing into a desire for empowerment. In confronting Tucker, Clara sought not only the truth but also the tools needed to shape her legacy. She wanted to transform the stories of her ancestry from shadows of shame into foundational blocks of identity. When Tucker returned, the energy felt charged, markedly different. He sat down cautiously, a seriousness shadowing his features. "Sorry about that," he muttered, but Clara could see in his eyes that he was rattled, maybe even off balance. "Let us get back to it," she urged, igniting the conversation like a firecracker. "What do you know about the Henley feuds? Who wins when no one wants to lose?" Tucker leaned closer, exhaling as if steeling himself. "There's more at stake here than you realize, Clara. Digging into our family history might unearth secrets best left buried. The Henley name is synonymous with power struggles and bitter rivalries." Clara met his gaze, her conviction unshaken. "But isn't it also synonymous with resilience? I need to understand it all, to reclaim it. Secrets have power, Tucker, but so does truth." He studied her for a moment, his steely resolve cracking just the slightest. Your father made deals with people who would do anything to maintain their hold. These weren't just business people, they were ruthless. A chill ran down Clara's spine. And what if those so-called ruthless people are part of my history? Am I destined to be like them? I refuse to be a pawn in this game. Their exchange became a tightrope walk, each word a calculated move layered with significance. A flicker of admiration danced in Tucker's eyes, but it was quickly extinguished. You're brave, there's no denying that. But seeking the truth could put you in a precarious position. Suddenly, Clara's phone vibrated, jolting her thoughts. It was a notification, a text from her office. We need to talk. Urgent matter regarding the Henley project. The context of her work, which she thought had little to do with her personal revelations, cascaded back into her mind like floods of clarity. I have to take this, she blurted out, urgency threading her tone. As she picked up the call, she felt the gravity of the moment shift. The professional realm she had been navigating was intertwining with the delicate personal cascade of her heritage. After hanging up, she looked at Tucker, resolved to pierce through the uncertainty that remained unspoken between them. You've seen what happens to those who hide. Before I can reclaim my legacy, I need to know everything. What's your real stake in this game? The cafe buzzed around them, time standing still. Clara felt the stakes rise, recognizing the power dynamics coursing through their conversation, a power she could use if channeled correctly. I can show you the truth, he finally answered, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. But you must be ready for the consequences. A shiver of anticipation surged through Clara. She understood that the next steps were pivotal. Then let us do this together, she stated, her voice laced with determination. I'm ready to face whatever it takes. As they dove into the depths of layers of family secrets, Clara realized that not only would she confront her past, but she would redefine her future. But somewhere, deep inside her, uncertainty festered. How far was she willing to go for this truth? The cafe buzzed with life as new questions emerged. Was she prepared for the brutality of the revelations that lay ahead? What would she uncover about herself along the way? As the night deepened, Clara sensed the pivotal moment approaching, daring the shadows to reveal what had been hidden for too long. Days turned into weeks as Clara delved deeper into the entwined histories of the Henleys and the neighboring ranchers. Each piece of information she uncovered revealed a tapestry of loyalty, betrayal, and ambition woven into the fabric of her family's legacy. She had stepped beyond the shadows, fully committed to reshaping the narrative of her ancestry. No longer would she be defined by the secrets that had once burdened her. Instead, she would forge her own path, driven by a newfound sense of purpose. With every meeting she held with Tucker, pieces of the past fell into place. They exchanged stories that illuminated the reality of their family's feud, the unresolved grievances from years gone by. It became abundantly clear that neither of them could walk away unscathed. The stakes had escalated, but so had her resolve. Clara recognized that understanding her family's legacy would provide not only clarity for herself but also a foundation on which she could build a future of her own design. She was no longer just a participant in her family's legacy, she was determined to become its architect. One crisp morning, as the golden sun peeked over the horizon, Clara sat at her kitchen table revising her notes. The energy surrounding the impending town hall meeting crackled with anticipation. Clara was no longer the timid girl navigating her family's history. A fire ignited within her that demanded to be expressed. Her hesitation had transformed into conviction. It was time to share her revelations with the entire community. Her voice no longer trembled with uncertainty, it emitted confidence and authority that would not be ignored or dismissed. The town hall room filled quickly that evening, buzzing with whispers and anticipation. Clara stood before a large crowd of familiar faces, neighbors who had been a part of her life but now felt like a united force clashing against her intentions. She could sense the apprehension in the air as she stepped onto the makeshift podium, the ambience heavy with unresolved tensions. No longer was she there to simply relay her family's secrets, she stood to declare her mission to realign the community toward honesty. Taking a deep breath, she opened the floor. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate you all being here tonight. We stand at a crossroads, a decision point that could redefine our future. The murmurs quieted, a palpable focus centered on her. Clara moved forward with determination. I have unearthed truths that bind our families in ways we've never acknowledged. These truths may provoke discomfort tonight, but they are fundamental to our progression. Our community has long been shackled by silence, and it's time we peel back the layers of our shared history. As she pressed on, the crowd shifted, many nodding along, some visibly irritated. Clara remained undeterred. The Henleys were once part of this community's foundation, but we've been painted as part of its downfall. We need to confront the shadows together. It's an opportunity to rewrite the narrative that has so long kept us at odds. Her words pierced through the apprehension, evoking murmurs of hesitation, but also curiosity. Mid-speech, she acknowledged Tucker, who leaned against the wall, watching her intently. Tucker and I have walked through our histories collectively. The past is intricate, but it can no longer define our present. We owe it to ourselves and to the future generations to unearth and contend with our truths. Clara shared her vision of a reconciled community, a partnership built on transparency where no secrets would overshadow progress. She could feel the collective tension beginning to dissolve. It was as if a weight abandoned the room, shifting the energy positively. Tucker intervened, nodding decisively. Clara is right. We have lingered too long in the shadows of an old conflict. The truth may not be easy, but we have a shared legacy, one that can heal rather than harm. His interjection felt like a validation, enabling others in the audience to re-evaluate their roles as passive participants in a conflict that unduly burdened the community. As voices surged in support, Clara felt the dawning realization of her journey. The path of courage demanded confrontation not just with others, but with herself. She had emerged from a young woman hesitant in the face of family loyalty to a resilient individual determined to carve her identity in defiance of inherited pain. That evening marked a milestone she had long sought, recognition not just from the community, but within herself. Clara's initiative transformed from an individual pursuit into a collective movement, with each voice adding to the resonance of reclamation. At the conclusion of the evening, the crowd erupted into discussion and planning. Clara had ignited the spark of change, but it was a shared responsibility that would yield lasting benefits. People approached her one by one, voicing their gratitude for her courage, their interest in participating in a movement for transparency. As the last of the crowd filtered out, Clara stood alone, absorbing the weight of her achievement. A sense of fulfillment washed over her. She had triumphed over the dissonance of her upbringing to embrace the truth. In that moment, she felt a profound pride bloom within. Clara Henley had not only faced her own family's history head-on but had transformed it into a narrative of strength, resilience, and community. With a smile on her face, Clara turned toward the horizon, optimistic and prepared for what lay ahead. The future was bright, and she grasped it with unwavering conviction. This was not merely an end, it was the beginning of something monumental, an adventure into the authenticity she had long sought. Now, loyal followers and champions of change, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now, so you do not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm's serious impact. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and stand up for their own truths. Don't wait even one more second to champion this cause.